we have Presha, she's senior in management, so Presha.
Well, hi everybody. It's funny how Keshav mentioned that, this room gives him a sense of nostalgia because I used to take salsa classes as a freshman and sophomore, so this room is connected to me one way or the other as well. Today I will share my internship experiences with you guys, but I will also be talking more from a recruiter/employer perspective. A little background about me. I came to Iowa State in 2010 as an engineering major. My dad was very unhappy when I switched to business, seeing as he's an Indian father and that comes with the DNA, I guess. But so I switched to business, and I didn't initially really know what I wanted to do in my life. So I took an offbeat path, did business management. I also have a minor in finance and a minor in leadership studies. And then I approached Emerson Fisher in Marshalltown, Iowa for a human resources internship. Now, seeing as I'm an international student, it was perceived that I was at an immediate disadvantage because human resources requires a thorough understanding of the law in the United States regarding labor, interviewing skills, etc. But I somehow convinced them that I could do it, and I got on board with them in summer 2013. Immediately after going to a corporate company, you honestly don't know what to expect. You don't know how to act. You're a student from Iowa State. You're probably the youngest person in the company in that particular period. I learned about interviewing students. I learned resume reviews, and there are actually a lot of the resumes that are reviewed from Iowa State. Obviously, I can't say whose, but it was a great experience and a very funny experience, and something that I'll share later on as well. After that, I came back to Iowa State as a senior, and then added finance as a major, so I got to stay here as a super senior. Emerson, though, again contacted me in summer 2014 asking if I would like to have a human resources co-op with them. And obviously, I said, yes, why not? And then they had an expatriate from France who was my boss, the HR director for North America, who I got the pleasure to serve under. I was with them till December 2014, and spring 2015 is when I'm graduating. Now I will be working with them throughout my OPT as well. So a few, and I'm not as good of a speaker that he is, so I actually got points. So hopefully this will help you guys out. So I think some of the advice or tips, or you'll hear a lot of this when you're speaking to your professors, when you're speaking to career services, but this is what it boils down to. You're all international students. How many of you are actively seeking internships at this point? How many of you want an internship this summer 2015? How many of you are looking for full-time jobs? Good. How many of you, now this is coming to the knowledge part, how many of you know what a CPT is? Okay. How many of you know what an OPT is? How many of you know what an OPT STEM extension is? Good. That's more than I hope. That's a good thing. So, as an international student, do you guys think you are at a disadvantage when it comes to employment in the US? Be honest with me.
Yes.
Yes? Why? Anybody? Why do you guys think that way?
H1 visa.
Okay.
Because companies doesn't offer jobs, full-time jobs, because they need to further offer us H1 visa.
Okay. So let's digress from the visa for a second. Give me an answer when it comes to the skill set. Do you think you have skills lesser than a domestic student to be employed in the US? I can't hear you guys.
I don't think so.
I'm gonna pick on you if nobody answers. Anyone? Okay, good. So you have the same skills, right? But have you ever thought that as an international student, you're at a much bigger advantage? Yes? Good. You bring a new perspective on a lot of issues, and the points that I'm saying now, I will go back to my experiences and relate those to them. So bringing a new perspective to the workplace. If you're working in a company in Iowa, you obviously bring a new perspective to employment. Now, when I was working with Emerson, they have offices in India, China, and all over Asia. So a lot of the issues that they were facing in terms of human resources and policies, they always made it a point to ask me, hey, is this going to work? So this was a new perspective that I was adding to the company day in and day out. We had applicants who were international as well. So Emerson Fisher hires international students for co-ops and internships, right? So when I was interviewing international students, I exactly knew what to look for. Because you can't, every person is different. So I had the opportunity to actually interview a global workforce. The second thing is language skills. Everybody here is bilingual or trilingual or, I don't know, you guys probably know like 5 or 6 languages, which is, one of the best things to say when you are talking to an international company is, hey, I'm bilingual, which means that you're adding another resource to the company and another skill set to the company. The second thing is flexibility to switch between cultures. Now, I'm from India, coming from a very different culture than the one that is in Iowa, and especially the corporate culture in the United States. But at the same time, I can switch between cultures. That gives me an opportunity to understand where the other person is coming from. Now, we have a lot of expatriates who work in Emerson Fisher, and they're all under the HR radar. So we're the ones who make sure that they're oriented to the United States. Now, me being from India, working to orient other people to the United States is trying to just add all of these skill sets to my resume to tell a potential employer later on that, hey, I worked in a company in human resources as an international student and helped other international expatriates orient to the United States, which speaks a lot about the skill sets and communication skills that I would have. What is the need not being met in the company? Generally the needs that are not being met have a lot to do with technical skills as well as communication skills. Identify ways of adding value. One of the things that I did, apart from recruiting and interviewing in Emerson Fisher, was also approaching my boss to suggest a project. I told him, hey, a lot of the companies in Iowa don't really understand how to employ international students for co-ops and internships. Now, I'm not going to go to the H-1B process because that's more of a government thing. But co-ops and internships is something that can be done through a CPT and OPT without that employer needing to pitch additional money. Correct? Right? Okay. So, what I told him, and I worked on compiling a big file with all of the visas and all of the recruitment that can be done through a workforce, and I told him Iowa State University, which is about 45 minutes away from Marshalltown, Iowa, has 11% of an international population, which is absolutely fantastic. Iowa State has one of the top engineering schools in the country, as well as one of the top business schools in the country. And then, we kind of looked into how can we hire, more perspectives, how can we get these people to work for Emerson Fisher. And voila, the next year, the recruiting cycle that we had more international students working for Emerson Fisher. The other thing, the way I convinced our vice president basically was that, hey, our company is an international company. Emerson is possibly in all continents except for Antarctica. And I told them, if you have international students working here and they don't sponsor H-1B visas, then if they would like an opportunity to go back to their home country and work there, you already have a workforce that understands how to work for Emerson Fisher, understands the culture. Second thing is your connections with the ISU community. When you go and work in a corporate company, especially in Iowa, and bear with me because I'm only experienced in the state of Iowa and not really working in the US. But you will notice that a lot of the people who are employed in these companies are Iowa State graduates. And it's really important for you to know that you have a support system there. Don't think you're an outsider. It's just one of those things, when I put up a little Cyclone banner in my cubicle, it is unbelievable the amount of people who stop by to say, go Cyclones. It's just, building a community around you to support you. And a few tips as a interviewer / recruiter that I would like to give you guys, and please, pay special attention to this. About 58% resumes get rejected because of typos. Don't be one of those people who keeps going back to your resume till the last minute to see if there's a spelling error. You're bound to make more errors like that. Make sure that you have the things in your resume. Can anybody tell me the purpose of a resume? Okay, one more? Yes. The purpose of a resume is to get an interview, is to get the employer to notice yourself. I've seen a lot of resumes, and honestly, I'm just like, I don't care if you were in the salsa club. You're applying to be an engineer. Yes, it adds another, layer to your personality, but you can tell that to me in the interview, So just make sure that your resume is concise. Now, I know a lot of you struggle with having a one-page resume, so do I. So mine's not a one-page resume. But I make sure that whatever's in my resume is exactly what the employer wants to see, because that's exactly what's in the job description. Second thing, when you're interviewing, make sure that you research the company. Make sure that when they ask you if you have any questions, be prepared with questions. I mean, obviously, ask anything. What was your turnover last year? Blah blah blah. What is the diversity in your company? Ask anything, but make sure you appear that you're interested in the company. And frankly speaking, if you're not interested in the company, you should not be interviewing with them. The second thing is when you're asked, and as he also kind of touched on this, tell me a little bit about yourself. Generally, out of the 90 times, of the 100 times you'll be interviewed, 90 times this question will be asked first. So be prepared with an answer. I can't tell you the number of people who just go, and then look down, and then look to the side, and are half sweating. No. Be prepared, be confident. I mean, you are from the other side, most of you are from the other side of the world, right? The cultures you come from, the value that you add to Iowa State and to the community, it's amazing. So make sure that you're proud of that, and make sure you talk about it. Make sure you talk about your experiences in depth at Iowa State. Necessarily they don't have to correspond to the job description at hand. Granted, yes, if you're interviewing for a technical position, a lot of your answers need to be customized to the skill set that you'll be needing when you're interviewing. But at the same time, make sure that they see your personality. Make sure that they see that, yes, you're a good fit for the company. And the only way you're going to know if you're a good fit for the company is when you research the company. And don't be somebody who you're not. Don't give generic answers, because we're not generic, right? We all have different names, correct? If we were all the same person, we'd have the same name. So understand your own qualities. Be well versed with the immigration system. Now, a lot of the people get confused when somebody asks them, "Are you eligible to work in the United States?" Then you'll get questions like, can you work in the United States without sponsorship? Then you'll get questions like blah, blah, blah. So, don't hesitate in saying that you can work as an intern or a co-op on a CPT. Make sure that the message goes across to them, because the amount of times I've interviewed an international student and they've always hesitated and appeared scared when somebody asks them that. Be clear. Tell them, well, a CPT is this and this, and OPT is this and this. And for that, you need to be educated in that area first. And that's why we have our lovely International Students and Scholars Office. You can just walk in, get an appointment with an advisor, and prepare that answer to your question. And that honestly makes a lot of difference too.
So what is the good timing in all the interviewing process to let them know that you're international student, or is it necessary?
You can approach that a lot of ways. I generally, when I interviewed with Emerson Fisher, I was a bit frustrated at that point. I asked them right off the bat. I was like, well, I didn't say anything about needing a sponsorship. I told them that I'm an international, when I introduced myself to them after saying my name, I said, I'm an international student at Iowa State University. I blah 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 my elevator speech, and then they gave me a campus interview after that. And generally, what I've heard from students is that in the campus interview, they specifically ask you these things. So before he could ask me anything, I just told him I can work as an intern or a co-op based on the CPP, which processes through the university. It is a 7 business day, 10 business days process, and that's the only thing I require through the employer is a job offer letter, and that was it. Yeah.
How do you, like, so a lot of the online applications, they ask that same question if you will need that H-1B visa in the future, but technically yes, but at the same time that's not what we are looking for, like they're just looking for interns, so like which one do we choose?
Right. So, and I mean, honestly, I don't know how to do that. But with Emerson, because I interviewed with them first, it didn't really matter what I put in the application. If there are other companies that you guys are interested in, I would actually have you go ahead and email one of the recruiters or their HR offices to clarify what they mean by that. If they directly ask you if you need H-1B sponsorship in the future, yes, you do need H-1B sponsorship in the future. There is no going around it because that is the way the immigration system is set up. But at the same time, if there is a little box, because a lot of the employers provide, please explain. Have you guys ever noticed that box right underneath that question? There's almost always a box that says, please explain your visa status, if you need a sponsorship or not. And I would urge you to please spend 30 seconds in answering that question about how you can be employed under OPT. For STEM majors, that's also an extension, about 29 months. That's the amount of time you can work in the United States. Any other questions at this point? Okay. So be well versed with the language asked in the application as well. Now, I'll be frank with you and say that I never read cover letters when the application came in, because if I saw a resume that was impressive and concise, I would just pass it on to the manager. But obviously, not all of the companies do the same thing. So make sure that you pay attention to your cover letter as well. I would urge you to please use Business Career Services or the Career Services offices in your colleges to, because you have that resource and they have more experience in this. And it's so much more easier than sitting by yourself in front of your computer and a blank Microsoft Word trying to come up with, 3 paragraphs that would best describe you. You'd rather just go to Business Career Services or any career services and get that kind of, get a template and then, just keep filling it in, go back to your advisor. It's well worth the effort, it will get you noticed. And again, make sure there are no typos because that's not good. Yeah, so I guess, here's a question that I will, how many minutes do I have? Okay, awesome. That's perfect. So I'll leave you guys with a question here. And think about this. And think about this when you're going to the career fair. Think about this when you're interviewing and when you're finally working as well. How many of you reject yourself before the employers reject you? You need to think about that. Okay? So how many of you reject yourselves before the employer rejects you? Thank you.